You are listening to Proof Text, a Glossa House podcast exploring Scripture and all things related to it. New episodes are released daily. For more information, check out glossahouse.com and subscribe to our channels on Spotify and YouTube. Welcome and enjoy.
Welcome to the Christ and Classics podcast, where we read the classics in light of the Christ. My name is Devin Wilkins, and I am joined in the flesh for the first time ever here in Oklahoma, Colton Moore. Welcome to the great state.
It's good to be here. I making a trip to Kansas City and back, and you and your wife and children have blessed me for the evening and the morning to play and have dinner and record. We're a no budget podcast, and our 20 consistent listeners, we hear you.
We hear you.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to do this. I wish we could live in the same town and do something like this more like formally and have good gear to make it really slick. But I tell folks all the time that we're doing this because we really enjoyed talking about great books, and we're not trying to gain a huge following so much as just share what we're talking about, and hope and pray that somebody might benefit, particularly educators and students. Like, in my mind, Devin, if we keep doing this, God willing, and God allows us to over the next several years, hopefully we've got like some sort of audio-visual repertoire that could function like a Socratic spark notes, if you will, for students and teachers alike. I mean, say what you want about spark notes, but I mean, nowadays they have some pretty decent analysis for at least the bigger books. They're fairly academic, I think.
I wouldn't know.
Well, it's just like any summary or commentary on a book. It's just that, a commentary. It's not a replacement for any book you're reading. You need to eat your meat and vegetables, and not just a protein shake. And the commentaries or analysis on SparkNotes or any other secondary source are like a protein shake or vitamin pills that help you, but they don't replace good old fashioned steak and rice and broccoli.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah.
Or what?
No, that's. I'll take your word for it, Colton.
You don't like SparkNotes?
I just don't use them very often. Yeah, I can't remember.
They do have a nasty reputation because it's an easy go-to for students to cheat and not read the book.
Yeah.
That's why you need a good teacher who forces them to read the book as best as he or she can. I mean, I have no problem with them reading a commentary. It's similar to you. You're preparing a sermon for Sunday. You're going to immerse yourself in the biblical text. You're in Mark right now, Mark 5. But also, you're going to be reading other commentaries and what others are saying about it. And so it's real similar.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Speaking of SparkNotes, why don't you give us the SparkNote treatment of The Last Battle? C.S. Lewis's The Last Battle. This is the last book in the Narnian series, and so it'll be, I guess, our penultimate conversation about Narnia.
Yeah, I'll give a summary, and then the next episode will be just our personal takeaways on the Narnia series before we jump back into Homer. So, Last Battle, it begins in the last days of Narnia, and we meet two characters, a monkey named Shift,
An ape
named Shift, okay, and a donkey named Puzzle.
Uh-huh.
And Shift is the leader of the couple, and he essentially capitalizes on Puzzle's lack of intellect and manipulates and warps Puzzle's will to serve Shift's own will to get what he wants in the relationship. Mm. And Shift comes up with this grand plan to deceive all of Narnia and become the ruler of Narnia. because they find a lion's skin in a body of water, and Shift convinces Puzzle to put it on. So you have a donkey with a lion's skin on, which is an obvious, I think, reflection to the Aesop's fables, the sort of story there, where the donkey's pretending to be a lion. But in this story, the donkey's pretending to be the lion, Aslan, and Shift is his spokesperson. And so he convinces all of Narnia that Aslan has come back and is speaking through Shift all of these things that Aslan wouldn't say, like cut down all the trees, begin trading with the enemy down south in Calormen. By the way, if you cut the trees, if I'm not mistaken, you end up killing certain creatures, certain mythical creatures that rely and are like their essence. It seems like they're bound to the trees, and so all of Narnia is really confused. Well, we want to obey Aslan, but Aslan is saying some things that we're not used to him saying, and it seems pretty harmful, and it seems to contradict his typical will. But the reason that they obey this word is because they recognize that Aslan isn't a tame lion. Aslan can say what he wants and do what he wants, and he has the authority to do so. That's the assumption, I think. And they obey.
Not a bad assumption.
No.
You just got to be sure that you're listening to the right guy.
Right. And they're not. And this is all. And so we meet some Narnians as well during all of this. King Tyrion, and he has a friend, Unicorn, and his name.
Oh, what is that unicorn's name?
How did we forget his name? Not Puzzle. That's the donkey. Jewel the unicorn, and they're a tag team, and they're really skeptical of all this. And long story short,
they give in. I mean, they say, if this is it seems like this is Aslan, and I guess we surrender.
Yeah, but along the way, the Calormen king Rishta Takan, and
he remembered Rishta Takan.
Rishta Takan. Oh, but not Jewel. Sorry, Jewel. He and an orange cat named Ginger collaborate together. What?
Keep going.
They collaborate together to basically do to Shift what Shift has been doing to the donkey, using Shift as their spokesperson to gain control over all of Narnia. And Tyrion, they capture Jewel. Tyrion and a couple of previous characters who come back, which are Pole and Eustace, team up with Tyrion to kind of overthrow this Calormen regime that is trying to take over Narnia and is doing it. And along the way, the Pevensey children come back. They've died in a train wreck. And like in an instant, they're healed of various little minor injuries, which I think is fascinating as they cross over. Except for Susan. Susan's left behind. She didn't die on the train. And
Left behind.
Very different story.
But it is a pretty eschatological book.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, long story short, they all team up together to try to reveal to the Narnians all this deception that's taking place. They first meet the dwarves. The dwarves don't buy it. The dwarves ultimately harden their will against Aslan and seek to serve the dwarves only. And they, long story short, beat the bad guys. Along the way, this demon-like vulture creature, who's like an actual like satanic figure, I think, comes back and plays a role. But Aslan comes back at the nick of time.
it's supposed to be Tash, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Calormen deity.
Mm-hmm. Part of Risha Takan's deception is that he has merged together Aslan and the Calormen god Tash to call him Tashlin. And saying that Tash and Aslan are actually just one god. And it confuses people because they've only known Aslan to be one god. And if you say Aslan and Tash, then and Aslan says that I'm the only one, but now you're saying Tashlan, then what do we make with what we were told before? And it's like that on both sides, for the Narnian side and the Calorman side.
Right. Yeah. Rishta Tarkhan, he is kind of making all this up in service to his own ends. But at some point, Tash actually shows up. And there's a shed.
Yeah.
Or they call it a shed?
A stable.
The stable. See, so various creatures go in there.
And they don't return. Like, they get thrown into this stable where supposedly Tash is.
But it's just a soldier who's killing people.
Yeah, it's supposed to be just a soldier who's killing people, but it actually is Tash, and they don't realize it.
Until Ginger,
the Rishta's right-hand cat, goes in and then flees out screaming, and nobody ever sees him ever again. And Rishta ends up getting thrown in there and taken away. But whenever the children get thrown in there, they go to a very different world. And they're with Aslan. Is that right? Am I remember that right?
Yeah, they kind of pass through a portal.
Yeah. And no. They see Tash, and Aslan appears, and then Aslan basically tells Tash, "Be gone," and then he leaves. And that inaugurates the beginning of the end of what we know as Narnia. And they all gather. I'm forgetting some of the more specific details.
There are some unlikely characters that actually make it into this kind of paradise, this kind of heaven of sorts, or new Narnia or something like that.
Well, it's still the old Narnia at this point because Aslan calls Father Time to come up.
Right.
And Father Time calls down all the stars, squeezes the sun, and they walk through the famous door that we're introduced to in Prince Caspian. And whenever they enter in that, the cold of Narnia, because the sun has been taken away, goes away. It's behind them, and they're entering into what seems to be a new Narnia, but Aslan tells them it's the Narnia that's always existed, and that the Narnia that they knew formerly was only but a shadow, a reflection of what it actually represented.
Yeah, hence Lewis's Shadowlands.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. And they, by the end of the book, are in Narnia, presumably forever, going further up and further in. How long? We don't know. And Jules leading the way, they find that they have strength and stamina to run and keep up with the animals. We have an unlikely character there as well that's worth contemplating, the Calorman there at the end, who never sought Aslan in his life, but was seeking Tash, or rather, he was seeking the truth.
Yep.
And Aslan accepts him into the new Narnia on the basis of the sincerity of his heart for seeking the right thing. And that raises other questions about analogy to the Christian life and salvation experience. But that's in a nutshell a very insufficient summary of the book. But you got a question to lead us off, Devin, and take us away.
Well, yeah, it feels a little bit like two books in one.
It does. It really does.
So you could spend a lot of time on just the beginning or just the end.
There's a lot of moving parts in this book.
Yeah.
A lot of moving parts.
One thing, I don't know if you felt this, but to me it felt like Tyrion, he doesn't seem like a king. He seems like a random guy who's, it just doesn't, I don't know. It's different than everything else. But yeah, my question had to do with this passage. Where's the book at? Is this it? Tyrion and Jewel are are with the dwarves. And I guess the Pevensies too. I can't remember. Anyhow. Oh yeah, Eustace, at least. Eustace and Bull. But let's see. So the dwarfs, as you said, they're not turning out to be the allies that they had hoped for. And as a result, Lewis says this: Tyrion had never dreamed that one of the results of an ape's setting up a false Aslan would be to stop people from believing in the real one.
Mm.
He had felt quite sure that the dwarfs would rally to his side the moment they showed him how they'd been deceived. And then the next night he would have led them to Stable Hill and shown puzzle to all the creatures, and everyone would have turned against the ape, and perhaps after a scuffle with the Calormenes, the whole thing would have been over. But now, it seemed, he couldn't count on nothing. How many other Narnians might turn the same way as the dwarfs? And so, one thing I was curious about...
We're so no budget ghetto. We're so poor. Our camera's right there by that salt. No, it's okay.
We apologize, viewers. It's also live stream. We don't have the viewers for that.
We have 20 consistent viewers. 20?
It could be one more.
That was Devin's favorite.
Go on then. That one was fun.
I know. I thought like Devin's gonna apply to graduate schools, but that's what I thought.
I know. Actually, in light of the last battle, because don't they teach Plato in these schools anymore? It'd be fun to unpack that with Ward.
It's cute. He was nervous leading up to it too. This really awesome guy.
I didn't.
Me either. Me either.
It was pretty pitiful. But
He was very nice. He was very kind and gracious.
He was great. Yeah.
Oh, you can see, that was our what's going on in there in the kitchen. In there, that was our previous setup, but we changed.
We'll fix it later. Would you like to come and get your 15 seconds of fame?
You can just...
All right. It's in the freezer. The bananas weren't. No. So it was like slime. It's 10 o'clock, yeah.
You can walk this way.
Okay.
Oh.
Take the walk.
There she is. Anyway, so I have a couple of questions. Obviously, I'm always looking to discern how the planetary theme is linked to hope in the book. So that's one thing. But perhaps more, maybe that could be an end to at least the first part of this conversation. But the place of syncretism in the last battle. You know, you've got Tashlan, you've got the lie. He says that setting up a false Aslan would be able to stop people from believing in the real one. So I suppose I'm wondering, that seems like the central conflict, maybe, or a central conflict in the last battle. And I suppose the question is merely, what's he getting at? What is Lewis after?
Yeah,
You know.
especially at this point in the book, or in the series, he's wrapping it all up. It's the end of the Narnian cosmos and the inauguration of the new one, or the one that's always been. And so, like, why this conflict? I mean,
I think it's pretty obvious that he's showing his Christian cards here with his. I think Tashlan, Rishta Takan, the deception of Aslan as the donkey as the donkey is all a reflection of what we know as the Antichrist, or many Antichrists. You have a demonic higher being that comes into play. Those are all obvious nods to a Christian sort, I think.
Yeah.
But what particular meaning does the conflict serve for this piece of the puzzle, this part of the story? Like a lot of endings to stories kind of end with a bang. Big battle. Swords, fight, blood, guts. And you have that here, but that's not the chief battle that's happening. Like the last battle seems to be more psychological than physical.
Right. There's not a huge battle like there is in Caspian, or even Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Mm-hmm.
The end of the Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe ends like what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not quite what happens here. It's almost like it just loses interest, and the spiritual realities consume
Right.
the conflict that was
Any
previously
physical fighting is, I think, we could characterize as skirmishes at best.
right.
And
Right.
the battle is for the truth. What's
Mm.
true
Mm.
and what's not true.
Mm.
And what the enemy does in this book is mingle truth with falsity, and by doing so strengthens his case against the good guys. When a little bit of truth is mixed in with a big lie,
Mm.
it's that little bit of truth makes the lie a bit more believable.
Yeah.
And that's why the dwarves didn't side with Aslan.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the whole tension. And it's not until really Aslan shows up that the truth's revealed and made really clear to everyone. But even then, the dwarves harden their hearts, and like they can't do anything else. They're drinking wine and eating delicious food, but they're tasting it as just bland junk and dirty dishwater.
Mm-hmm.
And Aslan says, "Look, they've hardened themselves away. There's nothing you can do for them."
Right.
So I think the last battle here is psychological. What is the truth? And
Or epistemological, or
yeah, both.
yeah, but it's interesting that what you said. So it's the actual fighting is kind of a skirmish, but the last battle itself is a battle for capital T truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm struck by that for sure, and that resonates. I wonder. Hold on, I just lost my train of thought. It's late when we make these.
Yeah.
Even when we're doing it together in person, it's late. But yeah, the last battle for the truth. That's something. And so syncretism necessarily makes probably the best conflict for that to be put on display.
Yeah, because by framing the higher authority as Tashlan, part Aslan, which is truth and goodness, and part Tash, which is fake and wickedness, by putting them together, if you reject Tashlan, well then you're, in theory, rejecting truth, partially, perhaps, at least theoretically. You're actually, by rejecting Tashlan, you're rejecting falsity altogether, because that's not who Aslan is. Aslan is Aslan, not Aslan and Tashlan together. That's a whole other made up thing. And Tyrion and Jewel and the good guys get that.
Okay, so I'm wondering also about the planet Narnia take, and how the Saturnine themes point us to hope. Here's what this is from Ward. Let's see. Actually, bring this a little closer so that I can actually. Okay. According to the ancient Greek writer Hesiod, Saturn, or Kronos, as he was known by his Greek name, consumes his children, only to disgorge them later. Galileo, when he first saw round projections on either side of Saturn in July 1610, mistook them for a pair of close companions. 2 years later, he was astonished to find that they had vanished. He wondered if the planet, like its mythological counterpart, had devoured his own offspring. It wasn't known that these projections were actually part of a ring surrounding Saturn. Yeah, maybe this is not what I was thinking. Oh, sorry. Saturn was known as Infortuna Major, two pre-Copernican astronomers. Saturn was the worst planet, the one whose influence could most easily go bad. It was liable to cause sickness, old age, ugliness, disaster, melancholy, and death. But if received aright, this influence might bring about godly sorrow, penitential wisdom, and contemplative insight.
Whenever I hear those themes, I don't necessarily think last battle.
Melancholy?
So when you said the word melancholy, it reminded me of the Narnians when they first heard of Aslan, so-called, making all these strange decrees. They were sad, gloomy because of it.
Ugliness, disaster, death.
Yeah, lots of disaster. Ugliness, I don't recognize. Death, certainly. Lots of chaos. The last battles, it seemed really chaotic. Chaotic, confused, lots of confusion, and despair that life will continue under this new Aslan, or at least Aslan as he's ruling through the donkey that they don't know of.
Yeah, I feel as though the overwhelming sentiment that accompanies the first half of the book is one of kind of despair.
Yeah.
And man, this book is a bummer. And it's the last book, and how are we here? But I thought what you said earlier about it's not the last military warfare battle as much as it is a series of skirmishes that are actually a battle for the truth.
Yeah, because it's not until the protagonists figure out the lie that the book begins to speed up, as it were, and focus on the battle itself. And because you recognize it now as a battle. Before it's known, I mean, we know as the reader what's been happening the entire time, but from the perspective of the characters, they don't know yet at the beginning, and everybody's down, gloomy, gray, despondent, despairing, because life is awful. And we don't know why, but we're going to obey Aslan.
Mm-hmm.
Surely he's got something good planned in this, which is a great posture to be. Great posture to have. So I guess the Saturnine images there fit.
Yeah, and what about that second piece where he says, if received aright, however, this influence might bring about godly sorrow, penitential wisdom, and contemplative insight.
Yeah, interesting. The only person that comes to mind is at the end, the Kellerman, when he comes to Aslan, and he confesses that he never sought it for Aslan all his life. He's never heard of him.
Mm-hmm.
But he's been seeking Tash truthfully because he believed Tash, the only person he's ever known to be true.
Mm-hmm.
And Aslan, on the basis of his earnest quest for truth, albeit amiss, accepts him.
Mm-hmm. And there's Puzzle.
Oh yeah, Puzzle constantly is down on himself about how unclever he is, and he kind of makes a turn toward the end. They even kind of chastise him. Puzzle, if you would spend as much time actually thinking rather than thinking of how unclever you are, you'd be a bit more clever. Something like that.
But he's one of the few actors in the conspiracy, or maybe he makes the turn. He is sorrowful.
Yes.
Maybe he does represent in and of himself something of a penitential wisdom.
Yeah.
And he's much more of a glorious character, at the end. And he even meets Aslan one-on-one.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good. I haven't dug deep into that. One of those last chapters in Ward's book about the Saturnine, about Saturn and the last battle.
Mm-hmm.
But all those do click.
And then even the Susan question, she's not here, she's referenced, but she's still back in England, totally distracted by lesser things.
Which is a reason why she didn't die on the train.
Yeah, so there's still hope for her. But she's not engaging the lies. She's kind of, it seemed like, distracted by more surface kind of issues, like I can't remember, lipstick and things.
Yeah, she the folly that she participates in is that of spending all of her time trying to remain at a certain age when she ought not to. Lewis says it more pithy and relates it to being young as well. But like she's spending all of her time trying to remain young when she should be growing up. Well, yeah. She spends all her time running towards remaining young when she needs to grow up by remaining young in a different way. Something like that.
Yeah. It seemed like she was eager to be grown up, but also obsessed with the youthful side.
Yes. That's right. That's right. Which is profound from our perspective. We're eager to grow up as kids, and then whenever we grow up, we're eager to remain young. And that plays itself out in men and women of all older ages trying to look young, trying to do things with their bodies that they just don't work that way anymore.
Hold the camera a certain way, add this filter,
Or wrinkle cream on your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're going to get wrinkles. Nothing wrong with trying to look smooth and nice, but like, I think that it's a warning for us from Lewis, I believe, to not grip so tightly onto this life, because death is coming for you, and you would be better to grow up by remaining young as a Narnian, and not remaining young as a non-Narnian.
Yeah, it seems that she's actually deceived herself, but it's a more of a surface deception. I do think there's hope for Susan, but she's perhaps the benefit of the last battle for the truth in Narnia is that it forces the issue. You can't just, paint over things, or, make things seem nicer with some makeup or something. You actually have to engage the truth and the lie and discern.
Yeah.
Rather than avoid it.
Yeah.
And the hope is that Susan someday won't skirt the issue, but she'll, and perhaps even the death of her siblings may be the, just the opportunity for her to stare these things in the face.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. Well,
further up
and further in,
It's uncommon to get a rendering of what the new heavens and new earth could be like. And that was just fun. That's a fun experiment. It's a fun note to end on.
Yeah. Well, Devin, let's wrap it up. A lot more we could say. We're already at like 45 minutes.
Yeah, but we're going to have to chop about half of it.
Oh. Every time we do something new or different, have a guest on especially, something goes wrong.
Yep. Tonight my guest was Colton Moore, and whoops.
Well, it's okay. This is probably just an audio file, so you won't be looking at us. All that work for nothing. Well, good thing we didn't lose any money.
Just losing sleep.
Yeah. All right. Adios.
Interested in growing your ancient language skills but not sure where to start? Glossa House can help. From illustrated readers and short stories to lexicons and grammars, Glossa House offers a variety of resources for beginning, intermediate, and experienced ancient language learners. Head to glossahouse.com today. Glossa House, language resources for the global community.